Food media needs more industry people. There are no dead ends in the food industry. A Cyclospora update and why it is so hard to sell cheese. This and more. Welcome to the Repertoire Report. My name is Ray Delucci, and this is a solo episode. Before we begin, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe and hype the video. This helps our videos get seen as we publish them. Also, we're going for 2,500 subscribers. When we hit that number, we are going to do a subscriber Q&A. So if you have a question for that Q&A coming up, please leave a comment below. But beyond that, please subscribe. And if you're watching on Apple or Spotify or listening, please follow along and leave a rating. All right, so this has been an interesting week. Foodborne illness outbreaks, different commentary on the food scene, just a lot going on in the food world. I mean, it's a crazy time. But I wanted to start with this piece, the Substack, that I thought was really interesting. The Substack is called Eating with Experts. I'll leave a link, obviously, in the description below. This is by Cy Willis, and the title is Food Media Needs More People Who've Actually Worked in the Industry. So I'll read the beginning. Quote, having worked in hospitality for most of our lives, we somewhat fell into food media. One thing we realized, most people in the upper echelons of this world have never spent even a day working the line. Fewer still have actually ran their own food or hospitality business. Sure, there's the occasional person who spent a summer as a waiter in their hometown growing up, and that absolutely counts for something. But at the end of the day, most of the people defining where we should and should not eat have little expertise in the arena in which they operate. It makes you think, who are the people defining, reviewing, and creating the storylines of the restaurant and bar world that so many of us love? They go on to say that this isn't to downplay the need for true food journalism. Quote, I'm an admirer of the craft and fully see the need for independent and objective writers, but I think it's safe to say the standard has deteriorated in recent years. We've gone from captivating writing of Ruth Reichel that takes you on a journey to the New York Times boiling down a chef or restaurateur's life's work into their new short review of 250 words. So it leads me to labor the point that we've been going on about for years. We need more people in food media who've actually worked in the food industry. So I'll stop with it right there and say I agree. I agree that we need this. Food media has become a landscape that is so saturated with so many different people and voices, whether it be from restaurants or just someone who's cooking in the kitchen. And I think that that is the beauty and the democratization of social media and of cooking and food in general. There are so many interesting and wonderful content creators, recipe creators, food media personalities online that I personally love following. And I know that not all of them have worked in restaurants. This isn't a elitism argument. This isn't to say like we should have no one who's ever not worked in the food world give critique and criticism. But I do find it interesting that it's so often the case that so many food media takes can sometimes be made by people that have never stepped foot into a restaurant or never had worked in a restaurant or had the trials and tribulations of a restaurant. I've been pretty open with the fact that, I worked in restaurants post college all the way to when COVID hit. And then post COVID, I've done private chefing, but I've mostly worked in food development and manufacturing. And I still, to this day, will say that the food experience I had in kitchens primed me for every other career outcome and facet that came from working in restaurants. And this is going to be a theme that we'll get later on in the show. But this idea that the people in food media haven't worked in the food industry and restaurants, I totally agree with. There is something you inherently learn, and there's an empathy you inherently gain when you've worked in restaurants. There is a understanding and appreciation and just a total willingness to kind of empathize with a chef or a cook when not everything is working correctly. I'm probably one of the easiest to go dine out with because I don't really complain. I don't send food back. I don't try to make a big stink when I get food made for me because I understand how hard it is. I understand that the restaurant world is tough. And one of the worst things I could do is, in my opinion, make a big scene and cut someone down, sometimes to a fault. I'll give criticism or feedback if asked, but it's very rare that I'll send something back. It has to be like something that's totally like just gone or destroyed, nowhere near what I ordered, or there's like an allergen risk for someone I'm dining with, like my fiance. Like that's the only time I would consider doing that. And even in working in the food industry, I feel like I gained this idea that I didn't want to critique other chefs, even though I had worked in the food world. I've worked in those restaurants. I've worked the 14-hour, 16-hour, 18-hour shifts, the months on end without a break. I've done all that. And I think that after I did that, I realized, yeah, I don't necessarily want to be a part of critiquing another chef because necessarily who am I to say what is and what isn't. Now, if you've watched the show, I've gone on different rants and other different facets about how people have managed other people and how they've managed their brands. Like you look at the Noma story, but that's completely different, I think, because that's like it's like misbehavior and whatnot. I'm talking about like critiquing someone's work that they put their entire essence into and showing up and trying to be negative about it for clicks. And so I agree with the sentiment that more people that have worked in the food industry need to be in food media, especially in critiquing and especially in talking about the restaurant industry as a whole. This is why I was very bullish when I did line cook thoughts on this idea of if you're a chef, if you cook, you should be putting yourself in front of a microphone and talking. You should be telling your story. You should be sharing your advice. You should be sharing your wisdom, your insight, your techniques. To this day, I work with chefs all the time, and I always learn something new about cooking. I learned a new dish the other day, and I just ended up making it on the weekend, and I fell in love with it. It was delicious, and I never really would have thought of done it to do it the way that I was tasked to do it by a client, and it was just so awesome to see, and it was so delicious, and it's just that joy of finding something new, right? And so I guess this is a long rant to say that like you need to have experienced what it feels like to get your ass kicked on the line, to be underwater in the weeds in service, to go in early and leave late and go in early the next day. There's so many different aspects of the food world that I think if you have worked in it, you're not going to really critique. Now, this doesn't mean that there shouldn't be negative criticism or criticism at all. I think that's a dangerous spot to go to. But I think what this author is getting at, and we'll see in the rest of the article, is that the industry just simply needs more voices that have done what those being critiqued in the arena are doing. So they go on to say that we need more voices who have done the 14-hour days in a hot kitchen, who have worked front of house in the holidays when everyone else is with their friends and families, who treat this industry as career and not just a stopgap, who have built bars and restaurants from the ground up and created places that define the fabric of their neighborhood or city. Those kind of people are the ones we trusted when we worked in the industry, whether we needed intel on a certain product or advice on fighting a fire that only an operator who had been through it before could tell you. They're where we would turn first. In fact, the chef at the bar in Lauren's hometown in New York was the one who helped us come up with the idea to sous vide our chicken wings before we fried them. This helped keep the quality but increase our numbers and means we would cater for enough people at big festivals in the NFL in London when we had our first food truck over there. That trust in the industry is also what led us to creating Eating with Experts, because if you want to know where to eat and drink, you ask the chefs, the bartenders, and the restaurateurs. Now we plan to take that a step further, not just asking the industry about where to eat, but having those people write for us and tell stories with us, sharing the behind the scenes and insights that most people don't get to see. We plan to be the meeting point between the industry and the diner. There will be people we work with who have Michelin stars and 50 Best Awards, but also people that couldn't care less about all of that and are still creating incredible spaces and putting out killer food. We don't have the millions of dollars Caper raised or that Chase poured into their pet project of the infatuation, but we do have industry voices who care more about the food and restaurant world more than anything else. We'll be announcing chef and expert contributors in the coming weeks, along with plenty more restaurant recommendations. So awesome. Some great comments on it. I just urge you to go read it and support the Substack and to subscribe and to listen to what they're talking about. I think it was a fascinating article to write. But B, yeah, I mean, everything I said before, the beauty of the restaurant industry is you make friends, you make colleagues, you have a camaraderie that lasts throughout, years and years and years of working in this industry. And there's just so much that goes into it. When I did Line Cook Thoughts, I was always excited to interview new guests because I knew that each of them had gotten up in the morning at a certain point, not wanting to do what they were about to do, and went and put 110% in to serve their customers, to be there for their staff, to show up for their line cooks, to show up for their servers, show up for their dishwashers. The beauty of highlighting cooks, the beauty of highlighting people in the food world is you get to showcase some of the best people that work in any industry in our country. And our industry is not perfect. There's a lot of issues. There's still a lot of structural issues. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. There's a lot of things that need to be taken care of. Obviously, there's a lot of poor behavior still in 2026. But at the end of the day, the food industry yields some of the most incredible and most thoughtful and most hardworking and beautiful people that you'll ever meet. And I think that in a world where everything is just like a 60-second video on TikTok or a a video that has to dunk on someone or leave negative advice or reviews, to have a space or to have people that have reverence and respect for the craft of cooking is something that is sorely needed and brought back. That's why I continue to do what I do in the podcast. That's why I've partnered with Justin and Repertoire. That's why we put out the content we put out. This idea that food media needs people, it needs chefs, and needs cooks. If you go back to Line Cook Thoughts, I've been saying it for what, 6 years, 7 years now. There's so much that we need from you. If you're a cook, if you're a chef, if you're someone in the industry, your voice matters. And when you don't speak up and when you don't share your voice, that's when those who have never been in this industry get to write the rules and they get to write the history of this cooking landscape. And again, this isn't an elitist thing. I love the people on social media that have never cooked, that are like cooking through cookbooks or found their own recipes or just fell in love with cooking. This isn't to say that you can't have that voice, but there is sometimes a needed voice for people who have, and it doesn't have to be in restaurants. It could just be you've done catering or you've done private events or you've just people that have actually like put food out for others, people who have served others food. And I think that the gatekeeping on this, the restaurant obviously is one thing, but just the ability to go put food out and cook for others. Like if you've not done that, it can be hard. It can be hard for you to share that experience. Cooking for people is a beautiful thing. When you work in manufacturing and recipe development, you do it at scale and you do it behind the scenes and you don't get to see firsthand as if you were in a restaurant. And I jump at the opportunities to cook for others and to share my food with others and to give others my food because you miss it. And the restaurant life isn't always conducive for everyone. It wasn't for me, for what I wanted to achieve in life, to be in restaurants 50 to 60 hours a week. But there is always a little part of me that misses being on the line and the simpleness of going through your prep list, and that simpleness also being the most complicated thing ever because you're up against time. There's a beauty in restaurants and in cooking, and to just see more voices from the industry is always needed. So a great Substack, a great read. I highly suggest you go read it. Link is in the comments. And yeah, thanks for listening to this opening story. We're gonna go on to this next one, which was kind of in tandem to this, because I felt this as well. And so this is in Kitchen Confidential. And the title for the Reddit thread is, "Today was my last day. Is it hard to say goodbye?" Quote, "I never wanted to be a cook. It just kind of chose me. I needed a job. There was an entry-level job that paid well." I feel the same way. First kitchen was a nightmare. It broke me. I lost myself. I was verbally berated and thought I deserved it. The second was great, but lots of overtime and worked every holiday. So much fun, though. The third was out of desperation. I had set a date to move and applied to 50-plus jobs. After moving and not getting any responses, I just went to another kitchen. Finally, I'm done. It was only 3 years. I hate the odd hours, never being available to partake in the fun family friend events. I hate that I'm terrible at cooking food. Yet I've enjoyed the friends, humor, passion, adrenaline/caffeine, being that guy that can make a huge mess but still cleans better than anyone else. I know I'll be happy doing something else, but I'm just honestly afraid. As a cook, I've learned to be on time, make lists, prioritize, improvise, and adapt. I know it'll transfer over, kind of, but every job before I was a terrible employee. Also, what am I going to do with these skills? Speedy dishwashing, mopping like Mr. Miyagi, insane spatula skills, makeshift funnels. I'm not the kind of person that should have been cooking anyway. My anxiety is insane. Was on Xanax for ages, and after quitting, the panic attacks destroyed me. I'd get it done, but people would get really concerned about me. I don't know, my heart wants to stay, but my mind knows better. I guess this is just what I feel like I need to say to let go. Farewell, you animals, never stop partying. I related to this a lot. A big part of what led me during COVID to maybe reassess was the mental health piece. I've shared this a few times on the podcast, but as you kind of go along in life and go through different ups and downs and you kind of forge your own way, you maybe forget about the good and the bad, and you look back on things in rose-colored glasses. And for me, cooking was very anxiety inducing. I had a tremendous amount of anxiety. I still have anxiety in certain ways that I deal with and manage. But when I was managing restaurants, it was at an all-time high, to the point where I would wake up with my heart pounding, checking my phone, and I couldn't just get sleep. I couldn't just rest. I couldn't just enjoy being around family. And I wasn't there for too long. It was like a year plus where I was when I got to managing my own restaurant. But it was a very much a wake up call early in life that I got that I was able to assess that yeah, this might not be for me. And that's not to say that I can't run food businesses. I actually think I did a stellar job. And I think that I was 21, 22, and I really hadn't learned about how to take my mental health seriously. I hadn't really learned about how to manage my anxiety and how to actually maneuver through the food world in a way that was healthy and full of boundaries. I was much like this person. Like abuse was tolerated, being yelled at was tolerated, giving more than I was given was a norm. It was expected. And so reading this is just I just there's no dead ends in the food industry, and there's no dead ends from cooking. I've met so many incredible people in the food manufacturing space that have worked in restaurants for decades and came over and they're just having an incredible time. I've met people that have gone on to start their own businesses, and I have friends, close friends that have left the industry but somehow used the skills they gained to forge their own path into a new industry. I have a good friend of mine who went from the food world to sales, and he does incredible at it. Like, there's always a way forward if you really take stock of the skills you have. And so I just say that to say that I read this post, and if you've been there, you know what this feels like. It feels like you're an imposter. It feels like you're giving up on something. But for me, I think one of the most liberating and fun parts of the last 6 years post COVID was learning a totally different realm of the food world. And it's this new learning of food development, food manufacturing, all these different things that I've gotten to learn over the last 6 years. It's just been incredible. And it's really carved a niche out for me for a job, recipe development, which I really love, that I never would have imagined if I didn't take my mental health seriously, didn't take the fact that I was always stressed seriously, and just told myself, grit your teeth and push through it. You'll be fine. I needed to take the time to listen to myself. I needed to take time to take stock of myself because I feel like I was good. I don't ever feel like I was like the most talented chef or manager. I wasn't. One of my favorite characters in media is Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is like, okay, he's like one of the most popular probably. But the reason he's one of my favorites is because if you ever follow his lore, he's not naturally gifted with the Force as a Jedi. And this is super nerdy. But I always fall back on I am the Obi-Wan Kenobi of anything I'm good at. Where it's like I'm not naturally talented. I'm not a natural talent at cooking. I'm not a natural talent at managing. I'm not a natural talent at most of the things I do. And it's just dedication and hard work and focus. And this isn't some grind set thing. This is just more so me recognizing that if I want to be good at something, my own personal skill set, I need to actually focus and do. I'm just not a naturally gifted person for a lot of these things. And that's the Obi-Wan Kenobi story. He became the best Jedi Knight because he couldn't fall back on his natural talent, I guess is what you would say. And I think that if you have the Obi-Wan Kenobi mindset in the food world, you will go far. Because you might feel like you're just a cook, and you might feel like you're just a chef, and you're just someone who is in restaurants, and you just have a skill set that's for restaurants. You know, if this person sees this podcast or not, I guess I just wanted to say that, like, thank you for sharing this. It's hard to admit when you're done. It's hard to admit when you're moving somewhere. And it doesn't mean you can never go back. I don't know if I'll ever be back in restaurants, but I wouldn't ever say no. But to be able to just put a final chapter on it and close it. I've done a lot of food writing in my career. It's not live anymore, unfortunately. The website shut down. But I wrote for Plate Magazine in 2021. I wrote an article during the pandemic called something along the lines of you're not an imposter if you leave restaurants, or leaving in restaurants doesn't make you an imposter. And Plate shared with me that it was one of their most, if not, I think they said it was one of their most read guest blog post of that year. And I think that's because so many people were faced with this reckoning of they've lost their identity. I think about all the things that I do in my life now. I have a full-time job, but I read, I write, I work on the podcast. I do a bunch of other items. I spend time with my family. I do so many different things. I still have a busy schedule. I'm still putting in more than 40 hours of work a week, but it's nothing compared to the constantness of, or the consistent demand of restaurants. And so I guess all that to say is like, it's okay to be done. It's okay to need to take a break. And I'm actually glad you did. And I didn't have anxiety nearly on the level of this person, but I know what it is like in a certain sense to struggle with anxiety and to feel like you're not good enough, or you're just not able to do it because of the struggle that mental health plays in all of these different, in all the different ways that it comes at you. So taking time to recognize that, taking time to focus on that is key. I think taking time to understand where you're at in life, understand what you want with your career, and knowing your boundaries and knowing what you want to do with the rest of your time in your cooking career is important. And trying new things is always recommended, at least in my opinion. So there's no dead ends in the food world. I love that this person kind of put a bow on it and shared what they're feeling. I don't like that they're like, I'm not that good or whatnot. You are good. You worked hard and you will do good elsewhere. Just keeping that positivity is big. So, all right. So, Cyclospora. This has been the craziest like foodborne illness outbreak I've seen in some time. So just to start, if you don't know, there's somewhat of an outbreak right now called Cyclospora. It is a microscopic foodborne parasite that infects the human intestinal tract. Swallowing the parasite, typically through raw produce or water contaminated with infected human feces, causes an intestinal illness called cyclosporiasis. The hallmark of the infection is frequent, watery, and sometimes explosive diarrhea, which sounds completely awful. Knock on wood, I don't get this. That can last for weeks if untreated. Other symptoms include severe bloating, stomach cramps, nausea, fatigue, and a loss of appetite. And so this is just, this is a food industry podcast. So there's just like a quick update on this because I was doing research for this podcast and there were so many different news stories coming out and so much changed within the last 24 hours. I was like, all right, I'm going to just do a quick update on this, and then everything changed, right? So a lot of our outlets focus on this, but this was from New York Times. So retailers removed more Taylor Farms lettuce after recall in 27 states. The affected products were shipped starting late June 29th and have expiration dates through August 3rd. So grocers and retailers rushed to pull products containing iceberg lettuce off shelves on Saturday as Taylor Farms issued a recall notifying customers that lettuce shipped to 27 states may have been contaminated. And this is from July 18th of 2026. The largest produce company in the country is under scrutiny after federal officials linked the company's Mexico plant to an outbreak of illness from Cyclospora, a parasite that can cause severe illness, including vomiting, cramping, and explosive diarrhea. The investigation by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention initially tied the parasite to lettuce that Taylor Farms shipped to Taco Bell in 5 states earlier this week. However, the recall notice by Taylor Farms late Friday, this last Friday, suggested far broader distribution of potentially contaminated greens. The recall may not end the current problems for Taylor Farms. Late Saturday, the Food and Drug Administration said a sample of iceberg lettuce from Taylor Farms de Mexico tested positive for Cyclospora during targeted import surveillance. And on Sunday, the agency said that the finding was incorrect and concluded the result was a false positive. Taylor Farms did not respond to an email seeking comment Saturday, but on Friday said it had suspended distribution of iceberg lettuce from central Mexico. The recalled products were shipped starting June 29th through as recently as Thursday and have expiration dates through August 3rd. Taylor Farms said on social media that none of its own Taylor Farms branded salad kits were associated with the outbreak. For those of you who don't know Taylor Farms, they are known as the Salad Kit Company. And instead of much of the product being recalled was sold in larger bags to food service operations like restaurants. Many of the bags were blended with romaine. States listed as part of the recall include Florida, Illinois, Texas, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, North Carolina, and Missouri. The recall notice does not list California or New York, but it is unclear if Taylor Farms supplied lettuce to companies in states affected by the recall, and then those companies distributed the lettuce widely. The size and scale of the outbreak, possibly affecting more than 5,000 individuals in at least 34 states, resulted in widespread panic among consumers. Consumer confusion around where their lettuce comes from is also a consequence of a non-transparent food system. Taylor Farms, like other food producers, does not disclose which grocery stores or restaurants it distributes leafy greens or other vegetables to. Even the company's recall was vague. Rather than provide the names of the distributors or stores that had received the lettuce being recalled, Taylor Farms used codes. Still, by midday Saturday, a number of companies that had been contacted said they were pulling the affected product from their supply chains or stores. Retail giant Walmart said it had removed some lettuce under its market side brand out of an abundance of caution. Cisco, the nation's largest food distributor, said it had withdrawn all iceberg lettuce products from Mexico at the request of Taylor Farms. And U.S. Foods, another large food distributor, said it also notified affected customers about the recall on Friday, a spokeswoman said in an email. Jack in the Box restaurants learned about the potential issue with its lettuce on Thursday and immediately told restaurants that had received the affected shredded iceberg lettuce to dispose of it. These restaurants were in Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, and there's been no known illnesses from Jack in the Box, according to the company. Taco Bell, which moved quickly this week to pull lettuce from restaurants in some states, said in a statement on Saturday afternoon that it adjusted its supply chain and within 72 hours had voluntarily removed all affected Taylor Farms lettuce. Clearly, this is a nationwide, industry-wide issue, not a Taco Bell-specific issue. In fact, it is likely other distributors and restaurants have been affected by the recall and may not have come forward. FDA regulations do not require the company to provide distribution information. That's Taylor Farms, source of frustration for food safety leaders. Quote, food safety advocates have urged FDA over the years to make this a requirement. While there may be thousands of cases, the CDC has officially confirmed at least 1,600 people have fallen ill and 141 have been hospitalized, most of them after consuming the lettuce sent to Taco Bell. The U.S. is on track to have more Cyclospora cases in 2026 than in any previous year, with 5,100 additional illnesses that may have been caused by the parasite being investigated. The FDA is planning to inspect the Guanajuato facility in the coming days to determine how the Cyclospora parasite got on the lettuce and track it through the supply chain. So that was crazy. So then you read that and you say this from Food Safety News that the FDA says Cyclospora test on lettuce from Taylor Farms was a false positive, outbreak investigation ongoing. And what was crazy was that Taco Bell was the culprit, right? Everyone was like, all right, Taco Bell, it's you, you're the one. And they're like, whoa, this is not just us. There's a lot more to say here. So then the FDA comes out and says this is a false positive. So Taylor Farms posts this. So they say, today the FDA apologized to us. Yesterday, FDA informed Taylor Fresh Foods that one of its iceberg lettuce products from central Mexico had a confirmed positive test for Cyclospora. Today, we are informed that the FDA made a mistake, and this was a false positive. To be clear, at this moment, the FDA has not identified a single positive product test result for Cyclospora. Acting on initial information provided by health officials in an abundance of caution, we completed a voluntary recall of iceberg lettuce from central Mexico. Recalled product was limited to iceberg lettuce, grown and processed in central Mexico. All other Taylor Farms products, including all Taylor Farms brand products, are not involved in the recall. Our thoughts remain with everyone who has fallen ill in this outbreak. We are committed to working with public health authorities as the ongoing outbreak investigation continues. So then there's this, where Taylor Farms, it's false positive. Are they really responsible? Maybe not. So then the Barron's has where we stand. So it's crazy. The first article on this is the Sweet Green stock soared because of this news, which is crazy. So they go on to say some restaurant stocks continue to fall on Monday as investors worried about their potential exposure to a cyclosporiasis outbreak. What a name. Even though there's no confirmed connection. I don't have much to say beyond the food system is so fragile and food safety is hard. It is difficult. And so every single effort we can make as a society to make our food system more rigorously safe, more rigorously sound, and to be focused on having the proper funding and the proper protocols and the proper services in place in order to have these outbreaks be avoided is important. I really don't know what the next step is, to be honest with you. If it wasn't Taylor Farms, which it seems it might not have been, which I don't know where you go from here, to be honest. So that's just an update because there's been a lot of there's still some people that think it was Taco Bell's fault. There's people that call it Taylor Farms. There's people that have no idea who or what or why or how this is happening. But that is just a little update as we are a food news and industry show. And it's one of the biggest foodborne illness outbreaks I've seen. Just a quick update. All right, a last piece here from the New York Times. I love cheese, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting little article to read. And so the article is titled, Everybody Loves Cheese. Why is selling it so hard these days? And this is by Pete Wells. It says, cheesemongering is a calling requiring deep expertise and long-standing relationships, but today's retail environment is making it more and more difficult. So they had a documentary that's opening in the IFC Center in Manhattan next month called The Big Cheese. It's about cheesemongering, and it brings the arts of slicing, wrapping, and spieling great cheese to the big screen. I'm really excited to see that. There are reasons to celebrate on the public health front, they say, because a wedge of cheese reigns in glory near the top of the newly inverted food pyramid. But he goes on to say that few mongers are cheering. They are deeply anxious about the future of the profession. A chaotic barrage of tariffs and a war in the Middle East have driven up the prices of many cheeses, both imported and domestic. Grocery chains increasingly stock grab-and-go hunks of cheese, vacuum-sealed in plastic, slashing jobs for mongers and selling at prices that independent counters can't match. Smaller stores have trouble finding bright, curd-curious young people who will take minimum wage pay or just above it to work on their feet all day, caring for dense wheels streaked with entrancingly pungent blue mold and luxurious triple cream rounds that drip like honey. While new cheese shops have opened recently and the Kroger supermarket chain's tireless expansion has brought branded Murray's counters to hundreds of locations, beloved and respected cheese specialists have closed across the country. The past few years have seen the loss of standard setters like Bedford Cheese Shop in New York, DTLA Cheese Soubrette in Los Angeles, and the Cheese Shop of Salem in Massachusetts, which cited rising costs and tighter margins. Other mongers bruised by the same forces can't help worrying over their businesses. A cheesemonger is a person who sells cheese. Good cheesemongers do more than that. They are interpreters, divining the desires of shoppers whose vocabulary may not go beyond soft, hard, sharp, and blue. They are personal shoppers, sifting through dozens of specimens in the case to select one that will deliver everything the customer needs, along with the pleasures of the customer doesn't know how to ask for. They're educators, sharing insights into the cheese's character and history, how its flavor reflects the time it was made, the pastures where the animals grazed, sometimes even the personality of the shepherd, cowherd, or goat herd. They're advocates for the cheesemakers who rarely go far from the barns, creameries, and caves where they work hundreds or thousands of miles away. So he just goes on to he talks about the big cheese and like the lack of ability for cheesemongers to get ahead, and this idea that much like everything in this industry, like large chains and supermarkets are just out competing independent cheese makers and shops. And I just shared this at the end because in an age of AI and an age of the whole theme of this is like really about the people in the industry. I feel like we can't lose these craftsmen, these artisans. You think of winemakers and sommeliers, but cheesemongers are right up there with understanding the different depths of cheeses. And you go anywhere, you go to a farmer market, my local farmer's market, I got cheese this weekend from him. Like it's just interesting to see what they have, and it's interesting to take the time to learn it. So just if you have a local cheese shop, maybe worth going and considering to go there. Like maybe it's worth a trip there. But just I thought it was a great article. It's much longer than what I've read. I'll leave a link in the comments, but like I said, just definitely go check it out. And I'm looking forward to this documentary that's coming out hopefully sometime soon. So that is all I have for this week. A shorter solo episode, but hopefully one that you gained something from. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. We're going for 2,500 followers, in which Justin and I will do a follower Q&A. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please leave a review and share it with someone in the food industry. I thank you all for listening to the show, and as always, I will see you on the next Repertoire Report.